Good evening or good afternoon or good morning at whatever time you are hearing this podcast. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is the other side. Today we'll be discussing the confusion that was brought into the polity and the economy of Nigeria following the revelations made by Honourable Abdusamad Dasuki, the member representing Tambuwal Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives, to the effect that the gazetted laws, acts of the National Assembly that are flying around, that are being used for the implementation of the new tax laws, are not the same with the bills that were passed by the two chambers of the National Assembly. He raised this as a point of privilege in the sittings of the House last week. And of course, this is a topic that should have come by way of motion so that the issues will be debated, facts will be presented, and a decision will be taken. And of course, the Speaker did not allow any discussion into the matter. He simply set up a committee. And the issue, first of all, the question to be asked now, since the House of Representatives Committee did not finish its work and the House of Representatives did not conclude on the matter and has gone on recess, what happens in the next 2 weeks when the laws are coming into effect? What will be implemented? Will it be the gazetted laws that are in conflict with the ones that were passed by the National Assembly, or what versions will be used for the implementation? And secondly, as some people are saying, that the president might order that the appropriate bills as passed by the National Assembly are brought back and implemented. The question to ask is that the circulars and implementation manuals for the start of the new tax regime are based on laws that are now known to have been altered with provisions deleted or added. What will be the implication of using manuals that are based on laws that have been discredited for the purpose of implementation? That will raise another question that will need to be answered. The explanations given by President Tinubu's tax czar, Moses Oloye, to the effect that there were different versions, and he spoke of final version, some versions, and so begged the question, and they raised more questions. Because as it stands today, under the extant laws of the land and under the current procedures of the National Assembly, Mr. Oluyede Taiwo does not have and should not have been in possession of any of the documents, because the documents are supposed to move from the two chambers of the National Assembly to the clerk of the National Assembly, who will send the document to the villa for the president to sign. And once the president has signed, the president sends back the bills, now acts of the National Assembly, to the clerk of the National Assembly, who forwards them to the government printer to print. How did Mr. Taiwo get into this loop? Because if he was in that loop, he was there illegally, unconstitutionally, and I will have to explain how he had access to documents that he does not have right to have at the time that he had them. The third question that need to be asked is for the government printer to explain to Nigerians and to the National Assembly how or who gave him the copy of the Gazette that he printed and distributed. The Gazette and the documents relating to the Gazette should go to the government printer from the clerk of the National Assembly. How did the clerk of the National Assembly send to the government printer a body of a law that in conflict with the ones that he was supposed to have transmitted in his hand to the president for assent? So the clerk of the National Assembly at that time needs to be questioned. How did he send the bill to the president? Did it follow the normal procedure of sending bills to the president? And how did the bill get to the government printer to print? The government printer will as well need to explain to Nigerians how he got the copy of the bills that he printed, who gave it to him, who authorized him to print that bill. Of course, we have a law the Authentication Act of 1961 or 1962 that has since been amended that lays out the procedures and how documents are supposed to be authenticated. And under that law, the government printer is obligated to authenticate, to discover and find out whether there are anomalies, whether there are corrections, whether there are any differences between what was passed by the National Assembly and what was forwarded to him to print. The government printer can therefore not claim ignorance and say that he or she just printed what was given. Who gave it to him? And under the law, the government printer is supposed to cross-check before printing. Did he cross-check? Where didn't the government printer raise the questions that the bill had been tampered with before signing, before making copies for circulation? And of course, we'll come back to the issue raised by Mr. Taiwo to the effect that he was using the word salad, final copy of copy that is not final. Who has the final copy? The final copy of the act is what should be in the possession of the clerk of the National Assembly, who transmits it in his hand to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So how did Mr. Taiwo come to have access to a document that is not yet final, that has not yet been finalized, that there will be a conflict between the final and non-final copy? Now, there are a few implications that we have to look at that would be necessary for anyone looking at the issue objectively. The first one is that, as of today, it is presumed that because the president did not sign the law as passed by the National Assembly, the Gazette that is circulating is illegal, unconstitutional, and not valid. And to that extent, it is my opinion that the Federal Inland Revenue Service has not yet been repealed, and all the other repeals are not yet valid. And as at today, anyone implementing the laws that has not been assented to by the president is performing an illegal and an unconstitutional act. Secondly, it is important to note that if, as it is alleged, the president signed or was misled to sign copies of the law other than the ones that were passed by the National Assembly, what that simply means is that the president has vetoed the bills. And if the president has vetoed the bills, it means that he will be required to send a communications to that effect to the National Assembly. And the National Assembly will consider those ones on their merit. However, it means also that as of today, there is no law available for implementation. So any action in terms of implementing any new tax law is unconstitutional and illegal. The civil society groups in Nigeria, especially those who are monitoring government, this is a big slap on them. It is unfortunate that they are not the ones that have discovered this anomaly. They should have been the ones that would have discovered. And it is important, therefore, for them to use this as an opportunity to inquire into all other laws and bills that have been passed to check whether the bills that were assented to by the presidents are the same in every material particular with the ones that were passed by the National Assembly. And finally, it is important to also state that heads are supposed to roll. The clerk or the former clerk of the National Assembly, if he has left, should be called to explain how he transmitted to the president a bill other than the ones that were passed by the two chambers of the National Assembly. Or if he did not do that, he needs to explain how the wrong bills got to the government printer, because the government printer normally and usually should collect bills that have been assented to by the president and have become acts of the National Assembly from the clerk of the National Assembly. So where did the government printer get the copy that they printed? And the government printer as well needs to answer questions. Why did the government printer not cross-check the laws, that the documents that were given to him in accordance with the Authentication Act? Because that is the of duty. And the religion of duty under our laws actually requires some penalties. And that needs to be done for the good of everybody in Nigeria, so that we don't have another body other than the National Assembly enacting laws for the people of Nigeria. What is your take and your opinion about what has happened? Should the president represent the bill? Shouldn't the implementation cease or stop until all these issues have been taken care of? Again, my name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.